I work in the public sector, and we've got a lot of user groups within the public sector, and those user groups are kind of like social media. You know, you've got groups of people who talk about issues and problems that they have. I'm just wondering how important you think user groups are linking through to social media, and how much you're actually seeing that sort of in the market, perhaps in the private sector. How much are user groups, or are they being used in a social way and actually promoted in a social way?
I'm not seeing it. If you look at things like the Oracle user group, for example, you're going to have an awful lot of events which are all about Oracle and all discussing Oracle problems and are all put around that. Now that's great if you're Oracle. It's not so great if you're HP. So I'm not quite sure how they work. Come back to the social point. I just want to reference the survey that you talked about earlier, because I read it randomly yesterday, the B2B survey with Base One, B2B marketing, about use of social channels. And they were saying 50% of business decisions didn't involve any social media at all. And the report was actually quite scathing in terms of, really, you might want to check your sanity. We were surprised by this finding as well, because it's very, very difficult, you know, as marketing professionals not to be bothered about social. But if you're going to put a lot of money into it, maybe you ought to think twice, because it's going to be very hard to do. Now, I'm not having a pop at Spiceworks, actually, because I wouldn't look at it in the same way. It's not Facebook, it's not Twitter in the same way, it's not that kind of thing. But the community sites, the sites which are specifically for the decision makers, they seem to have a hell of a lot more use from those decision makers and a hell of a lot more engagement. And I would advocate engaging with the media owners at that level. Is going to help you have those conversations and develop a brand.
But something like public sector is obviously a big vertical industry, so in those cases it's not technology dependent. So I would imagine engaging in those communities are going to be strong. If there's a CIO community, engaging across that level to target CIOs would make sense. And I'm going to knock it over to CIO.com over there. Go on.
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with Tom. I think that user groups, forums, communities, they're absolutely part of social media. I think that when people think about social media too much, they're thinking about the major social networks. The major social networks have got a role to play, but actually there's a huge world of social media conversations out there. Think about the social web, and it absolutely includes sites like Spiceworks, which is a community-based platform, and there's some great conversations going on that actually vendors can get involved in and leverage those conversations very, very effectively. So I'm going to disagree with Tom on that. I think when it comes to the social media metrics, I agree with what Mark has pointed out. So I think there's three kind of areas of social. I think social selling and social prospecting is a really interesting area. So we've been talking to some marketing services agencies or some social agencies that are really big in this space. They leverage the LinkedIn platform and almost look at LinkedIn as a database. And then we'll take over salespeople's accounts and do social prospecting and start to almost do appointment setting via social media, and that's certainly something that so if you're running that type of program, then very much it's about the kind of hard kind of ROI metrics that you would almost associate with a lead gen program. I think then there's the reputation management side of social media, which is much more aligned to kind of customer service. Actually, Dell is a really good example of a company who gets that really, really right. And then it's things like positive sentiment, stuff like that you would look to measure. And then there's the content marketing side of social media, which is much more the side that Mark was talking about, and that's where it comes to really kind of adding value to the conversations that are going on and feeding content into those discussions. And within those, some of the metrics that you would look at is kind of share of conversation. So there's lots of social media monitoring tools out there. How do you benchmark your share of that conversation against your competitors? How does your participation in that conversation positively affect your share of conversation? What kind of comments, shares? We talked about earned media earlier. How are you generating earned media from your engagement within those communities and those user groups? And so there's a big role to play for social, it always makes me laugh when people say, 50% of the audience aren't involved in social. That also says that 50% of the audience are involved in social, and guess what? This is growing really fast. And so actually social has definitely got a role to play within the marketing mix, and can be a very powerful way to engage the audience. Actually, we find that the traffic we drive to our programmes from social is the most engaged audience and the most engaged traffic that we can drive. And so, yeah, it can be a very powerful way to engage the audience.
So do you think we actually struggle to position it? It's not quite brand, it's not lead generation, it's not customer interaction, it's kind of all of those things.
Absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely. And clients now are starting to develop different social programs, for those different tactics.